Well, I'm back. We lost contact for a minute. I can't tell you why the system crashed, but the system crashed. And those who pick me back up on this feed, you're picking me back up on this feed. And I have to bring back in my go to meeting people. They got lost too. I think maybe not. They're still here. Good. But I lost my feed. Let me just set my feed back up for them to hear. And I will continue my message. Isn't that interesting? It just died on me. And I'm not going to blame the devil. Yes, okay, I'm back. I do apologize. System just dropped totally out for those who just came back in. Let me finish the last half of my message. I was about 53 minutes in. And so let's talk about it again. So, as I said at the beginning before the internet kicked me out, I said that we're walking in the convictions of our present. That is, we're walking in the conviction of our present. That's important to recognize. Every one of us here today, we are walking, we are walking in the presence of our current conviction. Again, if you just joined me in the back room, we got kicked off for a minute. I can't tell you why. It just dropped, and I hope you're back in hearing me. So I'm going back up again. And sorry you all out there on Facebook and wherever you are. But here I am. I'm back. Let's finish this message. Let's finish this sermon. Interesting. Salvation, confusion, and power. Certainly that's confusion, but I refuse to yield. So I trust I'm back out live again. And let's talk about where we left off at. We were talking about Paul saying that we're not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ, was the power of God unto salvation. Everyone that believed, the Jew first and also the Greek. Then he also talks about, for therein is the righteousness of God revealed from faith to faith. And I told you that the just shall live by their faith. And then we were talking about walking in convictions of our present, that Jesus didn't die for mistakes. He died for people who confess their real sins. And if we confess our sins, then he's faithful and just to forgive us and redeem us. But if we call them mistakes, I added in my last segment that he didn't die for mistakes. And quite probably you're living under the cloud of weakness all these years because you're calling it a mistake. Call it a sin, friend, and he'll come and rescue you. And I was getting ready to go into we live in the character of our future through faith. Walking in the character of our future is going to bring me into the last term of my subject, salvation, confusion, and power. Walking in the character of our future is where the church is failing. The character of our future refers to where we intend to be, where we expect to go. Peter writes in his particular letter to the church, he says that the earth's going to be destroyed and melt with fervent heat, and all the works going to be burned thereof. And he says, seeing that these things should be, what manner of people ought we to be? Holy in all manner of conversation. That's living in the character of our future. Knowing that I'm not going to spend my time worrying about the now. I'm going to live in the character of the later. So therefore, there is a contradiction of terms. Let me help somebody right here. It's contradictory because you're not fighting for the physical now. You're living for the spiritual later or the spiritual future. This is why you don't engage the way others engage and do as others do. Because you recognize by your first conviction that you're going somewhere. Hebrews says it this way, that they that were in this world confess they were strangers and pilgrims in the earth. For they look for a city which hath foundations, whose builder and maker is God. Therefore, by extension, they were not overly concerned with the now. They weren't concerned with the now. They were concerned only with the future. That's important to recognize. They're only concerned with the future. The future was important to them. It wasn't anything else that had their attention or had their minds. And so today, I want to share with you that you as a believer must recognize that the Lord has delivered you for the future. Say it with me. God has delivered me for my future. That's right. He has not delivered you for the now. And when we look at salvation, we must recognize that that's how this thing works. And it's important for us to see that in our lives. Carrying on. Philippians 12:2 and 12. Wherefore, my beloved, as ye have always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence. Work out your own soul salvation, he says, with fear and trembling. I brought you back to that for a reason. Now that you know that, this verse makes more sense, that you're living for your future. Paul tells us to work it out. I want to close with the theory of divide and conquer and the theory of power through conflict as I'm dealing with this last word of the text. Just give me a second and make sure that the people on Facebook can hear me as I close out. Yes, there you go. So those who are out there, you need to tune back in. We lost our feed, and I am not going to give the glory over this. It's just a product of natural things. So let me close out. The theory of divide and conquer, and the theory of power through conflict. Today, here's the word that I have. We are living in a season where the theory of divide and conquer is alive and well. When I was a union steward, I learned the theory of power through conflict or organization through conflict. And I was taught this by a senior delegate. I worked for District 1199. And he taught me as a young delegate, as a young steward, he says that when there's conflict, sometimes you can organize people better through conflict. Okay, so I got that, and I recognize what he was saying. So I took that to heart, and I saw when there was times of conflict how to organize those of my particular District 1199, those individuals who found themselves under the pressure, because sometimes the managers would just kind of do them really, really bad and put them in a place where they couldn't, they couldn't survive. And they knew that, and they would do things to inconvenience them and put them in a hard place. And they knew they needed the money, so they would give them positions and jobs they couldn't handle. We had one lady, she was a senior lady, and they gave her all this work to try to break her. And I began to see how they were trying to divide and conquer the people within the department. And they had favorites they were holding on to, see, because prior to this contractual group coming in to work with us, we were ran by internal authorities. We had people who were of our peer. The cooks were in charge. We had people of our particular race, well, I say race, our particular ethnicity, because I don't like the word race, ethnicity, who were working with us. And so they brought in others who were a mixture of our ethnicity and others, but they had another level of education and they had another thought in mind, and that was to divide and conquer. And so as I started seeing the conflict that was existing within the department, I remember what I was taught, and I began to organize through conflict. So my point of this particular aspect of my message is to point to the fact of what's going on in our world right now. The Lord said that the theory of divide and conquer is well in tow in America. If you would step back from the political wranglings and step back from your likes and dislikes of whomever it is, be it on the left or be it on the right, and just take a chill pill and just back up. And just for 7 days, just separate yourself from your convictions on either side and just watch. Just watch what's happening on this news channel and watch what's happening on that news channel and watch what this party is saying and watch what that party is saying. And you will recognize that we're well in the throes of the spirit of divide and conquer. What are they fighting over? They're fighting over power. They're fighting over who's in control of this great big machine called America. They're fighting over it. And if you step back another 10,000 feet and look, you'll recognize that they're saying things that will endear us to them so we can give them the power. It's really not about us. It really isn't. It's about what they think should be, what they feel should be established. And if you step back another 10,000 feet as a believer, you will recognize that many of those things, one, have nothing to do with us in terms of our future. And for those individuals who cradle religion as being a part of their platform, look at them. They are trying to establish a heaven on earth. Not so. God is not interested in a heaven on earth. So they're using those things to divide and conquer while treating people in ill manners. So neither side is really interested in us. They're dividing and conquering us as a people because they want to get power through conflict. They're concerned with gaining power. And right now, with the markets, well, the markets, I guess, are coming down, but they're not really operating on a true principle. But with the economics, I'll use that, in trouble. With our businesses going belly up, with the virus, whatever you want to call it, it's closing our doors. With the election season taking place now, with so-called racism being at the forefront, classism being at the forefront, what we are witnessing is a nation that's divided and conquered. A world, because it's not just happening here, a world that's divided. It's going through the machinations of divide and conquer, because on every continent, men are seeking power. And because the usual machinery isn't operable, because the economy isn't working the same way, and because people cannot congregate the way they normally would during campaign seasons, men are using conflict to gain power. It's the spirit of Lucifer. Salvation doesn't come through a party. It cannot arrive through an individual. Every 4 years, we're going to bail this water of who's going to be in charge. 4 years is not a long time, particularly as you get older. Time flies when you get older. Other side of 40, time moves. 4 years is like 4 months. And it's temporary, not permanent. The only thing that is permanent is salvation that God offers us. So I share with the church, one, we have to avoid the spirit of confusion. We cannot be fighting each other. Paul says it isn't supposed to be, because God's in you both to will and do of his good pleasure. It's not ours to make distinction. It's ours to know truth and let truth distinguish us. Let truth speak. It's important that we recognize that our salvation was given to us by God, but it is a process through which you and I must walk on a daily basis. We must walk in the convictions of our presence. We must live in the character of our future. It's not about what's going on now. It's why he came, why he died, why he rose, why he's coming back, and how we're to carry ourselves, because he said, occupy until I come. This is the message I want to share with you. We apologize for the problems with the machine. I can't explain it. I'll perhaps do this whole thing over again, but I want to leave that with you. The Lord wants you and I to know. Beware of the state of salvation, confusion, and power that man is activating in our society for the purpose of gaining control down here, not for our future. This is T. Allen Stringer, and I want to say, in all thy getting, get a good understanding.
purpose.